Speaking of the stimulus and just the general attitude of centrist Democrats when it comes to this, Mark Warner of Virginia, who is one of the wealthiest members of the Senate, is talking like a straight up neoliberal about what is in this bill to cable news. And it's not helping the messaging at all when Democrats have McConnell over a barrel because he wants something to be passed before the Georgia runoffs.
And it included a full 16 weeks of a $300 a week plus up. We thought that was very important to get to those people most in need. I think because the president and even some folks that call themselves progressives wanted stimulus checks more important than that assistance. You had to take it out of some pot, and I'm afraid that the relief for the unemployed may be a shorter period of time. But again, none of these are perfect deals. I wish my Republican colleagues would have been willing to simply plus up the $900 billion that is in this aid. But I'm very proud of the bipartisan work that was done because, let's face it, 3 weeks ago, we were nowhere. 3 weeks ago, Congress was about to leave town as the ultimate Grinches before Christmas, as people would have lost their unemployment right after Christmas. They would have been kicked out of their apartments on January 2nd. We saw those lines at the food banks. They would have simply gotten worse. And I'm grateful that we're finally acting.
You would have looked pretty out of touch and callous had well, if you don't act still, it hasn't happened yet.
We would have looked like stupidity on steroids was my line. But I'm glad that, frankly, it took this bipartisan group to break the gridlock. It is not a perfect bill, but at $900 billion, this is a lot of aid for people in need.
I hear your frustration on taking that money out of unemployment benefits. What about state and local funding? Because some of these municipalities, if they don't get any money, they're going to be laying people off. People will be out of work without funding.
Listen, I was a former governor. I know how important this assistance is. Matter of fact, 1.5 million state and local government employees have already been laid off. We had $160 billion in for state and local government. And I wish we would have had another day or two because I do think there was some appropriate liability protection that should have been put in place for responsible businesses. But the idea.
Okay. Well, there he is kind of gifting the liability shield messaging to Mitch McConnell. But this is part of my frustration with the media here. Stop framing every compromise, regardless of what's in that compromise, as a win for the American public. Because, first of all, that's Warner, I think yesterday, right? Was that yesterday, Matt?
Yes.
I think it was yesterday, yeah.
Okay. So at that time, direct payments were getting put into this bill, and it wasn't agreed upon yet. So he's prematurely making this distinction between, I'd rather have the UI, the unemployment, than the stimulus checks. Dude, you're a Democrat. Why aren't you advocating for both? But he's a part of that narcissistic centrist gang with Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin who want a bill that's a compromise and are way less concerned with what that compromise entails than the appearance of compromise. And that's when people hate politicians, because it doesn't matter if you pass a blank sheet of paper. It's not going to provide relief for the American people, but it makes them go back to their constituents and say, oh, I'm the deal maker, I'm the kingmaker, I'm the best senator there is. That's really what it's about. That's what they make it about. They make it about themselves as opposed to just fighting and being an advocate for people.
Also, to his point of he didn't want to leave. I know this is the point of the clip, but that he didn't want to look like he was out of touch. And then he went on to say, we're providing relief and people don't have to worry about being evicted coming January 1st. News for you, buddy. You are out of touch because the money that those people are going to get isn't going to be enough to pay for all the back rent that's owed because nothing was done to help renters. And plenty of people will be kicked out of their homes coming January 1st if they haven't already been kicked out of their homes, regardless of what you've heard in terms of the CDC stopped evictions or Governor Cuomo and local governors and state officials stopped evictions. They still went on across this country over the past few months, and many, many, many people have already been evicted. So the idea that this amount of relief is going to help those people is completely out of touch in terms of stopping the evictions. I mean, maybe you'll be able to put food on the table with those couple $100s, but it's not going to stop your landlord from kicking you out of your home.
I don't want to sound out of touch, but let me reference the Grinch in the face of the largest mass eviction crisis in this country's modern history.
I'm not the Grinch. It's about him again. Exactly, Matt. Right? You're gonna say I'm not Ebenezer Scrooge. I'm not the Grinch. I'm not Beelzebub. No one gives a shit about how you're painted in the view of your Virginia constituents when it's not, again, and the media reinforces it. They just reinforced it in that Bernie Sanders clip. Well, Bernie, don't you know that this compromise bill is going to help a lot of people? Do you know what's in the bill? Do you guys know what's in the bill? Because what progressives are fighting for substantively helps people more. And the fetishization of being in the center of everything, regardless of what that center entails, is infuriating to me because it enables the narcissism of people like Mark Warner and Joe Manchin and Mitt Romney to go out and be the heroes to the media when they're making it a false choice between unemployment and stimulus checks. And then that enables the Republicans like John Thune to go out there and saying, well, I'm worried people are double dipping. I'm worried people are double dipping and they're going to get both a stimulus check and they're going to get unemployment. What? Yeah. You know what? That's reinforced by Mark Warner.
And you can hear it in the way that, he answers Katie Terra's question. She's like, you guys would have looked pretty callous if you didn't include any of these benefits or relief efforts in the deal. And he's like, yeah, I think we would have looked stupid on steroids. It's like, it's all about how he would be represented in his image after the fact, not the fact that people would be starving and out on the streets.
Dude, that got me so mad.
Well, Mark Warner should be happy to know that he still looks stupid.
He looks like a monster. We need to start viewing these people as actual blood on their hands monsters, because the fact of the matter is any monster you see in a horror movie is only probably killing maybe a dozen people. But the fact that we're letting people just in mass get thrown out of their homes, it's a crime against humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I gotta look up Mike Myers' kill count now.
Being a senator is not about it's not about the appearance of deal making. I mean, it is about being an advocate for your constituents. Do they get that? I don't know.
To Matt's point, Michael Myers, in all of the Halloween movies he's appeared in, has only killed 121 people.
That's what I'm talking about.
There we go.
Well, you know what they say. If one person dies, it's a tragedy. If 1,000 people die, it's I don't know, too big to wrap your mind around.
The statistic, yeah. You were
right.
You were 80% of the way there.
Well, you took me the rest of the way, and thank you for that.
We actually do see that with the pandemic. Actually, on 9/11, what was it, 2,000 some odd, a couple hundred? What's the amount of people who died on 9/11?
It's like 3,000.
2,977 people died on 9/11. We are now surpassing that each day in the U.S. from COVID, and it's just open up, no big deal. It's not happening. No big don't take the vaccination. That's terrible. There's no pandemic. It's all political to hurt Trump. Open up the restaurants and the bars and the stores and all that. I mean, Jamie's right. I mean, there's only, 2,977 people is the limit for us in the U.S. to take as a tragedy when it comes to death. And then anything beyond that, especially when it happens each and every day, that's just, that's just what's happening.
Maybe if people did something really dramatic and in front of their congressman when they died of COVID, exploded or whatever, they might care more. I don't know. But then again, you have people who are suffering and dying from all sorts of knockoff effects as well. People who are out on the streets, people who don't have enough to eat. It might not be as noticeable for those in power, but it's real, and we have to keep on putting it to the forefront until people get organized in a way that scares the shit out of the ruling class and the people managing this economy.